The Bells Drop. Chapter 1: The Invitation to the Village. It arrived amidst the cold sound of rain falling on a Halloween night. The young apprentice magician, Elliot, was sitting in a small cabin deep in the forest, reading an old tome by candlelight. Suddenly, the sound of a bell echoed outside his window. As he listened carefully, the sound disappeared as quickly as it had come, and in its place, a small black envelope was caught on the windowsill. "What's this?" Curious, Elliot picked up the envelope. It was made of pitch-black paper, with silver letters shimmering faintly. "On the night of Halloween, the Bells Drop will appear. We await you at Midnight Village." There was no sender's name, nor any map to indicate the village's location. Only an old, intricately drawn bell symbol marked the edge of the letter. Elliot recognized that symbol. It was the mark of the fabled wish bell. Many magicians and adventurers had sought this legendary bell, said to grant any wish, but none had ever returned. "Is this an invitation?" His heart pounded in excitement. Hastily gathering his belongings, he prepared to set out. Though still an apprentice, obtaining the wish bell would bring him honor and fame. And if the legend was true, its power might even help him recover the lost memories he had been seeking for so long. As he stepped out of his cabin, the mist thickened around him, and a path of small silver bells stretched out before him, glowing faintly in the darkness, as if to guide his way. Midnight Village, where could it be? Following the sound of the bells through the dense mist, Elliot pressed on. Time seemed to blur, and soon he found himself at the entrance of a small village, hidden deep within the forest. A large bell was mounted atop the village gate, and beneath it, a solitary figure stood waiting for him. Dressed in a deep purple robe, the hooded woman's eyes gleamed with a cold light, as if they could see through everything. "You must be Elliot." Her voice was soft but carried a chilling undertone. "Yes, I am. And you are?" "Rosalia. Welcome to Midnight Village." She smiled faintly and extended her hand. Resting on her palm was a small, silver bell. "This village appears only on the night of Halloween. Here, every visitor's wish is put to the test. But remember, obtaining what you desire comes at a price." Her words made Elliot's breath catch in his throat. A bell that grants wishes. If he could obtain it, he might even regain the memories he had lost. But what was the cost? A price. What do you mean? That is something you must discover for yourself, Rosalia murmured, gently placing the bell into his hand. "Now, enter the village." Before the sound of the bell fades, Elliot stepped forward, passing through the village gate. Houses decorated with jack-o'-lanterns lined the narrow streets, their warm glow casting eerie shadows. Villagers dressed in strange costumes stood silently, smiling as if they had been waiting just for him. But behind their smiles, an unplaceable unease lingered. The Bells Drop will appear at the center of the village fountain. But when the drop falls, everything will begin. Rosalia's words echoed in his mind as he approached the fountain at the heart of the village. The water shimmered under the moonlight, and countless bells lined its edges, casting fleeting shadows across the surface. In the next moment, a single, delicate drop, silver and luminous, began to rise from the center of the fountain. "Is that the bell's drop?" He reached out instinctively, but the moment his fingers brushed the air, the bells around the fountain rang out in unison, a sound that was both celebratory and sorrowful. "Go ahead, Elliot. Claim the drop, if you're ready to pay the price." Rosalia's smile deepened as Elliot's trembling hand reached for the drop. Chapter 2: Guided by the Sound of Bells. The moment Elliot reached for the bell's drop, the delicate droplet rippled and a silvery mist spread across the surface of the fountain. A chorus of bells rang out through the village, and the space around him shifted as if engulfed in an icy wind. "What's happening?" He staggered back, staring as the drop moved gently across the surface of the fountain, as if guided by an unseen force, until it merged with a solitary silver bell floating on the water. As soon as the drop touched it, the bell began to tremble, emitting a low, resonant chime. It vibrated, then slowly rose into the air as if alive. "Be careful. That's not just a drop." Rosalia's voice echoed from behind. When Elliot turned, he saw her watching the bell with an intense, unwavering gaze. "That is the crystallization of all the wishes in this village. When the drop emerges, a trial is always set in motion. Do you have the resolve to face it?" A trial. Questions flooded his mind, but before he could voice them, the bells dropped and the silver bell fused, and the air around them shuddered. Silhouettes began to form in the mist, a myriad of shifting shadows taking shape around the fountain. "What are they?" The shapes grew clearer, and Elliot realized they were the blurry outlines of people, villagers from long ago, bound to this place by some terrible fate. Each of them carried a small silver bell, and as they moved, the bells let out a faint, mournful sound that sent shivers down his spine. They are the lost souls of those who once lived in this village. And each of them tried to obtain the bell's drop, only to fail. In exchange, they were condemned to become slaves to the bell, trapped here for eternity. Rosalia's soft words carried a weight that made Elliot's heart ache. But even now, they still have one lingering hope, that someone will come and succeed where they failed. Me. His heart thudded painfully. The shadowy figures turned towards him, their empty eyes gazing silently. Each step they took sent a soft, echoing chime through the air. "Yes. If you claim the drop, they will finally be set free." But Rosalia's voice trailed off, and she met his gaze with a stern, knowing look. "If you fail, you too will join them as another soul bound to this village, a prisoner to the bells, forevermore." Elliot's throat tightened, and his body broke out in a cold sweat. But even so, he knew he couldn't back down. He had come here to recover his lost memories and to free the villagers trapped in this haunted place. "I'll do it. I'll claim the bell's drop and free them." Rosalia nodded silently and reached into the folds of her robe, pulling out a small silver bell. "Then take this. With this bell, you can gain the strength to confront the trials of this village." But beware. Each time you ring it, a part of your own soul will be drained away. Elliot took the bell and held it tightly. It felt unnaturally cold, as if the metal itself was stealing his warmth. He glanced at Rosalia, then turned to face the looming structure at the far end of the village, a crumbling clock tower that seemed ready to collapse at any moment. A large bell hung at the top, its surface covered in strange markings, with countless names etched into the dull, silver metal. What is this? These are the names of all the challengers who have come before you, Rosalia whispered. They sought the bell's drop and met their end here, within this tower. The sight of those countless names, carved into the bell like a graveyard monument, made his chest tighten. As the cold wind blew, the bell swayed gently, filling the air with a haunting, melancholy melody. When you ring this bell and let its sound resound throughout the village, the trial will begin. Elliot hesitated for a moment, then steeled himself. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the frayed rope attached to the giant bell and pulled with all his might. I can do this. I have to. The bell tolled, a deep, thunderous sound reverberating through the village. Every window and door in the village swung open, as if in response to the call. From the darkness within, countless shadows emerged, staring up at him with blank, unblinking eyes. Now, Elliot, let us see if your wish is genuine. A low, sinister voice echoed through the air. The shadows surged forward, swirling and gathering into a massive figure that loomed over the fountain center. This is your first trial. If you desire the bell's drop, what are you willing to sacrifice? The deep voice boomed, making the air itself tremble. Elliot felt the weight of countless gazes on him, each waiting, judging. My wish is to regain my lost memories. And for that, I'll sacrifice whatever it takes. But as the words left his lips, a sharp pain tore through his mind. The bell's chime distorted his thoughts, his vision blurring as darkness began to creep in around him. Elliot, stay strong. Rosalia's voice cut through the pain, and he struggled to hold on to consciousness. But the village itself seemed to twist and warp, and in the next moment, Elliot's body was pulled into a thick fog, swallowing him whole. Chapter 3: The Labyrinth of Trials. Elliot's vision was swallowed by thick darkness as the mist closed in around him, and only the distant sound of bells echoed in his ears. He struggled to keep his mind focused, but the noise in his head grew louder and louder, as if something was trying to reach deep into his memories. Where am I? As the mist gradually thinned, Elliot found himself standing on cold, ancient stone pavement, surrounded by towering walls on all sides. The dim, moonless light barely illuminated the space, casting long, eerie shadows. He was inside a massive labyrinth. Bells, hanging all along the high walls, swayed gently in an unseen wind, chiming softly with every movement. What is this place? The sound of bells seemed to lead him onward. He reached out to touch the nearest wall. It felt icy and rough under his fingertips, and as soon as his hand made contact, faint silver light spread outward from the point of touch, like ripples on a pond. The sound of bells deepened, resonating throughout the labyrinth. Then, a voice spoke, low and sinister, from somewhere beyond the walls. "Welcome, bearer of hope. This labyrinth is made of your own memories. All that you have lost, all that has been forgotten, lies hidden here." Elliot's heart leapt at the words. His lost memories were all concealed within this labyrinth. Then try to find them, if you dare. To reclaim your wish, what will you be willing to give up? With those words, a large silver door appeared in front of him, carved with intricate patterns and lined with small, shimmering bells. As Elliot moved closer, he noticed something etched into the center of the door, a small plaque engraved with his own name. "My name." The letters gleamed faintly in the dark, and when his fingers brushed over them, the bells chimed softly. The door slowly swung open, revealing a long corridor lined with countless small rooms, each door inscribed with names he didn't recognize. "What is this?" He cautiously pushed open the nearest door and peered inside. The room was empty, save for a single mirror standing in the center. As Elliot approached, the mirror's surface shimmered, and suddenly a vivid scene unfolded before his eyes. It was a memory from his childhood. A young Elliot, holding his parents' hands as they walked through the woods, a smile of pure delight on his face as he picked up a small, silver bell from the ground. "Elliot, keep it safe. Bells hold the power to carry people's wishes." His mother's gentle voice echoed through the scene. But a moment later, the image darkened, replaced by the deafening crash of thunder and the sight of his parents vanishing in front of him, swallowed by shadow. "Mother. Father." The child Elliot reached out desperately, but the memory dissolved into mist, his parents' figures fading into the darkness. What was that? Elliot stumbled back, his breath quick and shallow. The room was empty once more, with only the mirror reflecting his pale, shaken expression. This labyrinth contains everything you've forgotten, all that you've buried deep within yourself. But each memory you recover demands a price. The voice resounded again, making Elliot clench his fists. He had only glimpsed a fragment of his past, yet the pain of losing his parents once more tore at his heart. Was this what it meant to reclaim his memories? A price. What kind of price? But the voice offered no answer. Only the sound of bells continued to reverberate through the air. Steeling himself, Elliot turned and approached the next door. Inside was another mirror, and as he stood before it, another scene unfolded. This time, it was a day long past when he first arrived at his master's tower, seeking training to become a magician. His master, a stern but kind man, peered down at the young Elliot, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Elliot, what is your wish?" Without hesitation, the boy Elliot answered, "I want to find my parents. I want to recover my lost memories and discover who I truly am." The master's eyes narrowed as he sighed deeply. "That wish may lead you to a path of no return. But if you are prepared to pay the price..." The scene cut off abruptly. Elliot clutched his chest as sharp pain shot through his heart. His master's warning rang in his ears, and yet, the memory slipped away before he could grasp its full meaning. "What is this?" What's happening to me? He backed away from the mirror, gasping for breath, struggling to keep his footing. Each memory he regained seemed to tear at his very soul. When you reclaim every memory, you will lose everything. The voice whispered, low and mocking. Elliot staggered, struggling to understand. What would happen if he truly remembered everything? And what would he lose? What am I supposed to do? His head throbbed as the bells chimed louder. Suddenly, every door in the corridor swung open at once, and 100 mirrors glinted in the darkness, surrounding him. If you wish to recover it all, then prove it. Claim everything that is yours. With that command, the mirrors shattered one by one, releasing countless shadowy forms that lunged at him. Each shadow was a fragment of his past, a piece of himself that had been torn away and locked within the labyrinth. My memories. Elliot's eyes widened as the shadows closed in, their touch burning like fire. He raised his own silver bell and rang it desperately. The purest sound rang out, cutting through the darkness, and the shadows recoiled. I won't lose. I'll reclaim everything. No matter what I have to sacrifice. With a fierce shout, Elliot swung his bell again, and the shadows parted before its clear, ringing tone. He dashed through the corridor, tearing through the labyrinth, shattering every mirror in his path as he drove the darkness back. He would reach the heart of this labyrinth, no matter what awaited him there. Chapter 4: The Heart of the Labyrinth. Elliot raced through the labyrinth, fending off the shadows that clung to him, the bell in his hand ringing out clear and strong. The eerie sound of countless bells filled the air, reverberating like a warning throughout the maze. It was as if the entire labyrinth was rejecting his presence, trying to expel him from its depths. What is waiting for me at the end of this? Sweat dripped from his forehead as his breath came in ragged gasps, but he didn't slow his pace. He couldn't afford to stop now. He had to keep going, no matter what awaited him. Eventually, a massive door loomed before him at the very heart of the labyrinth. Silver bells adorned its surface, each inscribed with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. The door felt ancient and powerful, and in its center, a small plaque caught his eye. Carved into the plaque was his own name. My name. Elliot's fingers brushed against the engraving, and the bells on the door quivered in response. They began to chime softly, their tones overlapping, filling the space with a sound that was both beautiful and terrifying. Slowly, the door creaked open, revealing a large, shadowed chamber. In the center of the room stood a single figure, a man shrouded in darkness. Who? Elliot took a cautious step forward. As he approached, the figure's features came into focus, and his eyes widened in shock. You're me. The person standing before him was an exact mirror image of himself. But unlike Elliot, this version's eyes were dark, almost empty, and a twisted smile curled his lips. Finally, you've made it, my other self. The dark Elliot chuckled softly, lifting a small silver bell in his hand. When he rang it, the sound that echoed was low and malevolent, shaking the very air around them. Who are you? "And why do you look like me?" Elliot demanded, his voice trembling. The dark Elliot didn't answer. Instead, he rang the bell again and spoke in a calm, measured tone. "I am the part of you that you sealed away. I am your lost emotions, your hope, despair, love, and hatred. I am everything you abandoned to protect yourself." My emotions. Elliot's mind reeled as a rush of memories flooded his senses. The accident, the night he lost his parents, the agony and pain that had shattered his heart. He had cut away his own emotions to survive that unbearable loss. "Yes. You cast me out, locking me in this labyrinth. In exchange, you lost all your memories." The dark Elliot smiled, but it was a cruel, empty smile. "All that remains is this hollow version of you, wandering through life, searching for something you'll never find." The bells on the walls trembled, their discordant chimes ringing out like cries of warning. "You can't return now. If you reclaim every memory, you'll never be the same again." Elliot's chest tightened. Everything he had experienced in the maze, the shattered memories, the pain of remembering, the shadows that clawed at his soul, it had all been leading up to this moment. He had wanted to recover his lost past, but now, "I won't be myself." Yes. The moment you accept every part of your past, you will cease to exist as you are. You will become a new entity, complete, but your current self will disappear. Elliot's heart pounded wildly. The cost of reclaiming his memories was far greater than he'd imagined. He wouldn't simply gain back what he had lost, he would lose his very identity. "No. I don't want that." But the dark Elliot only shook his head, raising the bell once more. "There is no other way. All of your forgotten emotions, all of your lost memories, they will consume you. You will become whole, but you, as you know yourself, will be gone. Gone." The dark Elliot nodded slowly. "Yes. You will be nothing more than a complete existence, with no sense of self. I am you, and you are me. But your current consciousness will vanish." Elliot's body trembled as he stared at his dark reflection. He had come so far, willing to give up anything to recover what he had lost. But this wasn't what he wanted. Even so, images of his parents, of their gentle smiles and warm voices, flashed before his eyes. He had been chasing those memories for so long, yearning to bring them back. Elliot took a deep breath, clenching his hands into fists. "Even if I disappear, even if I'm no longer myself, I want to free this village. I want to remember everything." With a shout, he raised his own bell high and swung it with all his strength. The clear, pure sound rang out, cutting through the air, and light exploded from the bell, flooding the chamber. The dark Elliot's eyes widened, his mocking smile fading. "You." The light surged forward, enveloping the dark figure, swallowing his form in a brilliant glow. He screamed, his voice echoing through the chamber as his body dissolved into mist. And then, there was silence. Elliot collapsed to his knees, panting heavily. His bell still shimmered faintly, its tone fading into the quiet. The labyrinth around him trembled, and walls crumbled away, revealing a small, tranquil pool of water at the heart of the room. Floating at its center, shimmering softly, was a single drop of light, the true bell's drop. This is the real drop. He reached out, his hand shaking. As his fingers brushed the surface of the water, the bell's drop glowed brighter, enveloping him in warmth. The moment he touched it, he felt a surge of power, a sensation like memories rushing back to fill the empty spaces within him. You will regain everything, but you will lose yourself. The dark Elliot's warning echoed in his mind. He hesitated, staring at the glowing drop. What should I do? But then, the drop pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. He felt a gentle warmth, a faint sense of acceptance. Even if I lose who I am, even if I disappear, I choose to accept everything. With a firm resolve, he grasped the drop tightly. It shone brilliantly, its light spreading throughout the labyrinth, filling every corner with radiant energy. The sound of bells rang out joyously, reverberating through the village. The countless silver bells that lined the labyrinth's walls shimmered, their chimes clear and bright, as if singing in celebration. The shadows that had haunted the village faded away, the souls of the villagers released from their bonds. I did it. Elliot fell to his knees, his body filled with warmth and light. As his consciousness began to fade, he felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. Am I disappearing? But then, a soft, familiar voice echoed in the distance. Elliot, it's all right. His eyes widened. That voice. It was his mother's. You're not disappearing. You have accepted yourself, and now, you will become whole. Tears welled up in his eyes as he felt his mother's presence wrap around him, comforting and warm. Slowly, his eyes fluttered closed, and he slipped into a deep, peaceful sleep. Chapter 5: The Bell's Drop. Elliot's hand hovered just above the shimmering bell's drop, frozen in midair. The beautiful, luminous droplet glowed softly, as if inviting him to take hold of it. Just one touch, and he would recover all of his lost memories, the answers he had been seeking for so long. Yet, deep inside, he felt an inexplicable fear. What will happen if I take this? His voice trembled. He knew that taking the drop meant reclaiming his past and becoming whole again. But it would also mean confronting everything he had tried to bury. The fear of what he might lose loomed large in his mind. Slowly, hesitantly, Elliot extended his fingers and touched the bell's drop. The instant his skin brushed against it, a sharp, cold sensation shot through his body, followed by a rush of warmth that spread through every inch of him. In that moment, his memories surged forth. A childhood memory, walking hand in hand through the woods with his parents, his heart filled with joy as he held a small, silver bell in his tiny hands. The night of the storm, his parents' faces twisted in fear, the crack of thunder splitting the sky, and the shadows swallowing them whole as Elliot screamed helplessly. Mother. Father. The words escaped his lips, tears streaming down his cheeks as the pain of that long-forgotten night resurfaced. All the emotions he had sealed away, the sadness, the grief, the overwhelming sense of loss, burst forth, threatening to overwhelm him. They sacrificed themselves to save you. A voice, the voice of his dark self, whispered in his mind. But you couldn't bear the pain. So you chose to forget. You locked away your memories and your feelings, and you locked me away, too. Elliot's heart ached as images of the past continued to flood his mind. He saw himself kneeling on the ground, clutching his head, tears streaming down his face as he cried out for the parents who would never return. I ran away from everything. I tried to forget. The light of the bell's drop pulsed, resonating with the turmoil in his heart. The sorrow, the anger, and the despair he had felt that night, all the emotions he had rejected and abandoned, came crashing down on him. When you take the drop, you will reclaim every piece of your shattered heart. But, in return, you will disappear. The dark Elliot's voice echoed through his mind, sharper and colder than ever. When you accept your past, your emotions, your entire self, you will cease to exist as you are now. Elliot's grip on the bell's drop tightened. He looked down at the radiant light in his hand, his mind swirling with confusion and fear. Disappear. What does that mean? Will I stop being myself? Yes. When you become whole again, the Elliot you are now will be gone. You will become a new entity, a complete being with no distinction between your light and darkness. Your current self will simply fade away. The words sent a chill down his spine. All along, he had been willing to sacrifice anything to reclaim his lost memories. But he hadn't expected this. He hadn't known that the price would be his very identity. No. I don't want to lose myself. The dark Elliot's figure appeared before him, his expression softening for the first time. There is no other way. The moment you accept every memory, every feeling, you will become something new. You and I will merge, and your current consciousness will disappear. Disappear. The dark Elliot nodded slowly. Yes. You will no longer be Elliot. You will simply be. A complete existence, but without the individuality that you know as yourself. Elliot's body shook as he stared at his dark reflection. He had come so far, endured so much pain, because he wanted to be whole again. But now, faced with the truth, his resolve wavered. What am I supposed to do? I wanted to reclaim everything, but I'm scared. He closed his eyes, images of his parents flashing through his mind, their kind smiles, their warm voices. He had been chasing those memories, longing to feel their warmth again. And now, with trembling hands, he lifted the bell's drop, holding it close to his heart. Even if I disappear, even if I lose who I am, I want to save this village. I want to remember everything. His voice rang out clear and strong, filled with a fierce determination. The bell's drop in his hand glowed brighter, and he felt its warmth spreading through him, filling every corner of his soul. The dark Elliot's eyes widened in shock. You. The drop's light flared, enveloping the dark figure in a blinding glow. He screamed, his form disintegrating into mist, his voice echoing through the chamber until it was swallowed by silence. Elliot fell to his knees, the bell's drop still glowing softly in his hands. The labyrinth trembled, the walls crumbling around him, revealing a vast, moonlit sky. And in the center of the room, the fountain shimmered, its waters calm and still. The bell's drop floated gently above the water, radiating a soft, pure light. I did it. Elliot's voice was barely a whisper. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the drop. A wave of warmth washed over him, soothing the pain in his heart, filling the emptiness inside him. You will regain everything, but you will lose yourself. The dark Elliot's warning echoed in his mind. He hesitated, staring at the glowing drop. What would happen if he took it? Would he truly disappear? What should I do? The drop pulsed softly, as if responding to his doubt. He felt a strange sense of peace, a gentle acceptance radiating from its light. Even if I lose who I am, even if I disappear, I choose to accept everything. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes and grasped the drop tightly. The light enveloped him completely, flooding the entire village with its radiant glow. Every corner of the labyrinth was bathed in its brilliance, and the sound of bells rang out joyfully, echoing through the night. Silver bells shimmered on every wall, their chimes clear and pure. The shadows that had haunted the village dissolved, and the souls of the trapped villagers shimmered, rising into the light. I did it. Elliot's body grew lighter, warmth spreading through him. As his consciousness began to fade, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Am I disappearing? But then, a soft, familiar voice whispered in his ear. Elliot, it's all right. His eyes widened. That voice, it was his mother's voice. You're not disappearing. You have accepted yourself, and now, you will become whole. Tears blurred his vision as he felt his mother's presence surround him, comforting and warm. Slowly, his eyes fluttered shut, and he surrendered to the gentle embrace of sleep.